It is impossible to say how the idea first entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture. A pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, you fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. You should have seen me, how wisely I proceeded. I was never kinder to the old man than the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. I moved my lantern slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to get into place, opening the lantern in such a way that only a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. This I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers. I could scarcely contain the feelings of triumph. But my thumb slipped. He sprang up in bed. "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, but he did not lie down. He was sitting and listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Although he never saw or heard me, I knew he could feel my presence in the room, the presence of death. I opened a very, very little crevice in the lantern. You cannot imagine how stealthily, and let a single dim ray fall upon the vulture eye. It was open! Wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw nothing of the man, only the dull blue eye with its hideous veil. You may call me mad, but what you mistake as madness is merely an acuteness of the senses. As I sat still, a soft sound came to my ears. The old man's heart. For some moments longer, I stood completely still, but the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. The old man's time had come. The deed was done. The old man was stone dead. The eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will no longer once I tell of the wise precautions I took when concealing the body. I chopped up the old man in the bathtub to conceal the blood. Then I took 3 planks from the floor and deposited the dismembered corpse. I replaced the boards so cunningly that no human eye, not even his, could see anything wrong. By now it was 4 o'clock. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking on the door.
"Police, open up."
I opened it with a light heart. For what now had I to fear?
"Good evening. I'm Officer Higgins.
I welcomed in the officers, and they asked me questions, to which I answered calmly.
One of your neighbors heard a shriek
I
earlier.
was just having a nightmare.
And about the old man. Can you tell us about him?"
Oh, he's off in the country. I had so thoroughly convinced the officers to my innocence that I invited them to stay a while. I seated them in the room of my victim, placing my chair upon the very spot of the old man's corpse.
So how's the weather?
But as we sat, my head ached, and a ringing grew in my ears. I talked and talked, but the noise grew. The officers heard nothing. I rose from my chair, talking quicker and louder, violently gesturing as I spoke, but the noise only grew. Still, the officers heard nothing. No, they heard. They suspected. They were making a mockery of my horror. I felt I must scream or die. Villains! Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here is the beating of his hideous heart.